Hello and welcome to our final session. We're going to use a great case study of a fantastic show to close Event Tech Live this year. Farnborough Airshow is amazing and huge and implements all sorts of technology to take it forward. So I don't really know much about the event, so we're just going to do a bit of a question and answer, and you're just going to talk me through how it rolls. So, I mean, tell me a bit about Farnborough Airshow. Why? Where is it? How many people attend? How does it go?
Well, I might be best placed as with the management platform that manages all the day-to-day running of Farnborough's accreditation system for contractors, visitors, both trade and consumer. And Farnborough kind of blows most out of the scale by having 140,000 people attend consumer and trade. So the challenge in itself is the sheer size of it. It's then placed around an airport, which is not a conventional event site at all, with very little infrastructure. So that's where a lot of tech comes into play, because you've got an airport effectively with multiple sites of entry for all the visitors, exhibitors, contractors, and contractor can start building up as early as 6 months out from the actual physical show. Wow. So that's where all this kind of build-up and project build-up starts.
So, I mean, take me back for the start of the process then. So, the organising team... sorry, I didn't introduce you guys. Sorry. Did you want to quickly introduce? I just went straight into it. Did you want to quickly introduce yourself? Sorry about that.
It's okay. My name's Blain. I'm the CEO of D2i Systems. Provide software platforms for event clients. Right from the kind of small events right the way up to the larger ones like Farnborough with more complex infrastructure required.
And how long have you been working with Farnborough?
Since 2006.
Okay, so you know the show very well then?
I've been a few times.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Peter from WeTrack. We do project management, risk management, and then incident management. So once you're into event mode, especially something like Farnborough, which is an air show, so therefore quite a risky thing to put on, and you have a lot of police, ambulance, everything else there. So we go from the project management into like issue resolution software on site. Generally, we deal with very big events, so Cricket World Cup, Expo 2020, those sorts of events that have 20, 30,000 tasks plus, all being managed by hundreds of different people.
Hi, and I'm Mike from DBpixelhouse. Our relationship with Farnborough goes back as far as Matt's does.
Yep.
And we're responsible for the Wi-Fi and hardwired infrastructure of Farnborough. So a lot of the tech that's taking place on the site actually sits and runs off of our network there.
Fantastic. So you've worked with the show for a very long time.
I haven't.
You haven't?
1 year.
1 year?
1 year.
Was it a shock? Was it when you knew how big it was going to be, or are you used to the events of that size?
Yeah, luckily we're used to that large scale. Sort of the complexity when you have hundreds of internal users all learning a new system and how it works for all the different teams, whether that's marketing or operations or sales, just means that you've got to try and provide a platform which works for everyone without being so generic that you might as well use a spreadsheet.
Yep. And how big is the organising team? So obviously you guys are external contractors, but how big is the organising team themselves? Roughly?
There's 48 employees within the Farnborough International Limited Airshow. They're then part of a bigger subsidiary, which is ADS, which is a membership within the aviation industry. But the actual team for Farnborough is 48.
And how has it changed since you've started? We start with how's your involvement changed, and how has the visitor changed, and how has tech enabled that from your point of view?
Yeah, so for us, really, it's just a greater expectation on the tech. So providing the network, we kind of understand what load is put on it. So, for example, this past year, we saw 20 terabytes of data being transferred across the whole network.
In one show?
Yeah, exactly. We had, on average, 20,000 devices connecting per day on the Wi-Fi. It was just immense. And it's all about what we do. It's a mission-critical network. You've got some massive corporations there doing some billions of dollars worth of business every day. A huge expectation that everything just works.
Yep.
As always with tech, it's when it doesn't work, the people notice it. When it does work, no one's got any idea what's going on in the background. So it's really just that extra expectation, I think. There's a lot more screens, there's a lot more advanced technology. People are using VR and AR and all those kind of things, as well as all the emails, phone calls, all the usual kind of stuff.
And it's an airport, so you bring that all in? Is that how it works?
Yeah, well, we're pretty lucky. We've got a long-standing relationship with Farnborough Airport, and every year what we do is we see what part of the infrastructure we can make permanent. Because it is a live running airport, there's certain things that we can only do last minute. So literally, day before show, we're digging trenches and laying cables in the areas that are actually live airport up until that point in time. So to try and make it run as smooth as possible and to try and de-risk it, we do as much as early as we can. And as Matt was saying, we're starting back in January, February with our work. We're bringing cables in. We lay 150 kilometres of cable, temporary cable in every year. As I say, over time we try and build that up and make some more of it permanent, but it's pretty difficult when it's a live operating airport.
I think the other thing to sort of give a sense of the scale is that I think they're only just finished taking down all the temporary structures, and the event was in July. So that gives you a scale how long it takes to build, and then also, equally importantly, how you get everything down safely in a sensible way. So it's the show is a couple of weeks really, with everything going in and out, but the whole planning around it is just about a year.
And Matt, obviously your involvement, D2i, you're through the whole process, is that right? With the sales team as well from the very beginning of the sales process?
Yes, with our platform, we've got multiple different modules, and that includes sales lead management, operational delivery from an exhibitor point of view, and finance integration. So we start almost before the next event starts, and it's every 2 years. So already before we finished the 2018 show, we were planning the 2020 show, building up the sales process within the platform, which then hands over to operations, exhibitor manuals, and then actually go on site to do the physical accreditation, where for us, these guys becomes a very important part, because our technology then extends around the airport, sitting on their infrastructure and their management systems.
And so we briefly spoke about changes in expectations from visitors, especially for Wi-Fi and networking. But what about the organisers? Obviously, they're not here, so you can be as honest as you want. But what, in your experience, since you started working with this particular event and these particular organisers, what's the change in expectation from them on your technology?
Well, Farnborough are one of those organisers that always want to kind of improve and evolve. One of their biggest things, if I'm being honest, is that because they run one major show every 2 years, you don't have the opportunity to really hammer that home. You've got one show every 2 years that you need to make a really big difference. So they're always pushing through. For us on the accreditation side, was a kind of idea of replacing people with systems, i.e. automation. So on that accreditation process, still delivering a great front of house delivery, but not having to have 100 people placed around the event, just automating that process. So that's something that we achieved this year, and something that we put in the remit from the previous year, was not to lose that level of service and front of house management experience, but put some tech in there that deliver that same level of service.
And the visitors and exhibitors were appreciative of that, did they? Or?
Yes, I mean, I guess, like these guys will say, when you're kind of the back end of the technology, people only tend to tell you things when things are going wrong. So for us,
in a panic.
Yes, exactly. So for us, there were no complaints, so that's a real positive.
If your phone is quiet, that's a good sign, is it?
Exactly.
I always say on the support lines, everyone phones you to say that there's something wrong. No one phones you to say you're doing a great job, guys.
Yeah.
So no news is good news in my book. That's
great. And what you've already started planning for 2020. How does that look like? Someone was telling me they lived in Farnborough, grew up in Farnborough. Whenever the air show was on, that was it. The city shut down, the place shut down. You couldn't get anywhere. I mean, how do they start preparing now for that? Have they learned? What have they learned? What was the biggest things they learned this year and they're going to take forward for 2020 in terms of tech?
Well, I think it's fair to say all the wash-ups are taking place at the moment. So for certain areas, certainly in the sales,
yep.
Obviously they're looking to grab sales this year, ready for 2 years' time. But in terms of the tech, Farnborough are going through all the wash-ups now, so they're starting to feed back more and more of what they found out. I mean, I don't know about previous years, but this year there were a lot of their team out and about during the show, asking a lot of questions, gathering data, understanding what went right, what went wrong. So we're expecting, we've got wash-up coming up later this month with them. We're expecting to get some good feedback and hopefully some good challenges as to what they hope, more from us next year.
And do they, their expectation, they always want to continually evolve them? Because actually it's quite an unusual industry in that it's quite male-dominated engineering. It's one of those industries that people go, oh no, they won't want tech. They won't. They're not. It's not for them. Is that true? Is that what's their tech take-up?
I think it's the opposite, because the aviation industry is all about tech. With some of the amazing things now with the AUVs and things going on, the organizer is being, has to keep up with that to show that they understand the marketplace. So they're always trying to push on, and I guess then it comes back to the kind of tech and the kind of more glitzy stuff versus the operational, which I think, as guys spoke earlier, we're very much on the operational side.
Yeah.
And some of that for us in feedback was people talking about queue times, length of time coming from the bus stops, the trains in a massive show like that takes over the town, that they wanted an ability to be able to have some real-time feedback. So, I mean, we implemented as well as one of our kind of KPIs was a tracking system from the main city into the actual event to give idea to their kind of central command unit, which is where they run everything, the control room, an idea of how long it's taking someone. And my understanding from it was from previous show, 2 to 3 hours. And because they had that real-time information, they could then operationally push more buses, talk to the train lines about delays, etc., to be able to cut that right down to 40 minutes.
Wow, that's a massive improvement.
Yeah, and it's probably worth saying that even though it's operation software, no user wants to have clunky operation software. So there's always, pressure and an idea to improve it, especially for something like the event control room that you're talking about. And I saw the stuff coming through, and it was really good. But you get lots of people, police, fire, ambulance, they all come on site, and they've got literally an hour or two before they're live and operational. So even though it's ops software, it needs to be intuitive and quick to deploy and robust. Otherwise, if you lose them, then the whole thing collapses.
I should mention as well, if anyone's got any questions, you can do that via our Glisser technology. So you could submit questions that way for the team. Otherwise, it's just going to be me asking questions. Where do you guys get your inspiration for how you need to grow your product? And does it because it's such a large-scale event, and we talked it's business to consumer, business to business. Do you guys look to music festivals for that? Is that on that scale, or are there other events that you go to that you think that's really good? We need to be implementing that. Would be good for Farnborough. How does that work?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because from our perspective in terms of what we do, we quite often get compared to things like music festivals. But you kind of have to put Farnborough Airshow into perspective. You've got all those 140,000, I think you said visitors coming through. Very high profile. We talked about the control room. So in that control room, we've actually got the heads of Hampshire Fire Brigade, heads of Hampshire Police, all that kind of stuff in there. It's still an operational airport, pretty much all the way through. Disaster recovery, in that there's a secondary control tower, so if something happened to the control tower itself, they can switch to the secondary one. So for us, because it is so mission critical, there is nothing like it, and it's about we're constantly challenging ourselves as to how do we take it on to the next level. And we really do struggle to seek inspiration. The competitor show is in Paris, which is every 2 years, so that's kind of sometimes a bit of a challenge, bit of a benchmark. There's something exciting going on in Paris that we're not doing in Farnborough, but generally a lot of it is driven by Farnborough's own inspirational ideas, our partners playing off of each other, and just how far can we take it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's a mixture of everyone and the industry. I mean, there's this show itself, kind of seeing more and more people, whether it's in the launch pad here. And I think one thing that the tech companies are happy to do is kind of work together, integrate together to improve that. So more and more, that's certainly what we do, is integration with as many platforms as we can, because we all kind of do tech, but there's always a USP for each business. So we've integrated with finance system, project management systems, and far more things for us on the horizon is accreditation in with things like biometrics and facial recognition. So that takes it on a step again. So always looking for more. We're also very lucky. We have a gentleman called Phil Simpson who's our R&D lunatic, I should call. So he's always locked away in a little laboratory coming up with crazy ideas. So every business needs something like that, a bit entrepreneurial to put out there, really. And it's the market then that tells us what's good and what's not good.
So your partnerships that you've established now, do you use them in other events as well? Do you work together in other events, or is this the only event that you guys work together on solely at the moment? At the moment.
Watch this space, I think, yeah. I think we all realise that, none of us can do everything. In fact, none of us would want to do everything. And developing tech, big tech takes a long time and costs a lot of money. So unless it's absolutely your core business, just work with others rather than try and build it yourself.
What was something that they implemented this year that you thought, yes, that's great, that maybe people who maybe run smaller events could actually implement? Matt, you talked about lead time. I've worked on lots of shows at, say, Excel, that are just standard B2B shows that have masses of queues at registration, and they don't have the technical issues that perhaps Farnborough does. So, is there anything we can learn from what you've implemented this year to help reduce that other shows might be able to?
Yeah, the key to that, it's a mixture of not technology, especially when you're talking about human interaction, is understanding the journey. So that's what we're trying to map from a technology point of view, because then once you understand the journey, you can improve it. So Ben Gleeson, who's the operations director for the show, was very much about understanding the journey so we can improve it. And some of those improvements you could do there and then, and it might not be tech, it might be just actually man management.
Yeah.
And getting the right mix of that. Earlier I said one of our KPIs was to automate, but not to the point where the human element has totally gone, because you can't lose that either.
Did you, when you say automate, how did you do that? Was it chatbots or was it just a better processes?
No, better processes and a way of giving people options to actually almost self-pick-up, almost the airport style of things. So again, we talked around the industry and what airports do, because that's almost a great synergy of everyone gets flights, and if you think about the old process of passport control and all of that, now you can fast track. So we put similar things in place to fast track people through so that they weren't queuing. And the other element then that complemented it was to track people from way before that. So those people that had already kind of effectively pre-collected their ticket, we could track them the moment they got on a public transport to see how long it's taking them, and that then was giving trends. So going back to the control room, we had a dashboard there with the journey times, busiest access points, so then operationally people can be diversified enough to move things around, to take pressure off in certain areas, or recognise that there were queues somewhere else that wasn't on the physical event area. Right. It was down at the train station, so they could deploy people down there to make that a smoother journey.
Yeah.
I think this was our first show, and we removed an incumbent in a couple of areas. So I don't know what it's like before, but a lot of this is just about enabling those event operators to make better decisions faster. And the way of doing that is to provide feedback quicker from all the different systems. So if you can do that, then it just allows them to go, right, actually, we know about this, we've got contingency, let's do it, but do it 5 or 10 or even half an hour quicker than they would have if they were manually trying to get feedback from people on the ground.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions from the audience. So with such a large site, how do you gear up your teams and technology to help support driving exhibitions like Farnborough forward? That's a good question.
Yeah, well, there is a tech side to it and a people side. So as long as your tech is user-friendly and easy, then we have a core team. And at Farnborough, it's only 2 or 3 people, which is mainly a really high-level tech, project manager, and then a kind of effectively a support person. But then we have subcontractors that then, because the software is easy enough to use, can go out and just manage it. And then we have staffing agents that then run the kind of man management people element. So for us, we had up to 100 staff, but only really 3 core people, because we make sure that the technology is easy enough to use that we can train someone up and deploy them quite quickly. So we kind of have that layer of core subcontractor and then agency staff, and ramping up and ramping down.
And what about DBpixelhouse? Do you have that staff in-house, or do you have to bring in subcontractors to do that, to help you do that?
Yeah, we do.
And diggers, apparently.
Spades, actually. But no, yeah, so we use our own team, which is fantastic, and the skill set and experience they've got. But we have a large suite of freelancers as well that we bring in. And, as I said, it's a mix of people and tech. So, as I said, we kind of start January, February time. We ramp up as we get closer, bringing in more and more of the key skills as we go. And then from our hardware infrastructure perspective, it's all pretty scalable. Mm-hmm. So we do all sorts of sizes of events where we have the similar concept of a mission critical network. So things like Samsung mobile phone launches and events for Adobe and people like that. So the same concept of how we provide high speed, highly reliable, mission critical networks, we can then scale that up for Farnborough.
And yourself?
None. So, no, go in and train them sort of 5 days before show opens, and then we're off site providing support if required, but we don't have anyone on site.
And we've got another question. Do you use mobile technology to help manage the event? So I'm not sure who asked that question, but I'm assuming apps, or is your tech on mobile?
We, again, not being operationally based at this point for Farnborough, our app is about the accreditation and real-time scanning and access control. So on a site like Farnborough, there's two real elements. One is security. You're not meant to be in this area, so in real time, that app is on a mobile device and can quickly connect to the cloud, thankfully due to DB, to make sure that that person is accredited to be in that area. And because it's in real time, because someone might need to be rejected at any moment, we're very dependent on the infrastructure from that perspective. So we use a mobile app for that purpose, and then also when the consumer-based stuff comes in, it can quite easily be turned to revenue protection, so that it's more about people not copying tickets and trying to get into the actual site. Because obviously a show that size, although a ticket price is generally cheap, it's a lot of revenue to protect.
Yeah.
So our mobile app is very specific about the operational elements.
That's another side of the trade. It's not just a trade show. You have to think about the consumer side as well.
Yes, with our platforms, it's the same process, but again, just flipping it between that kind of B2B trade, security protection, and then the consumer being about protecting the revenue and people not kind of sneaking under the gate sort of thing.
Another question for DB. Do you see the future drive of AR at the show to increase the delegate experience?
Almost definitely. As I say, very much the client base is always looking to do something different and make the whole show more exciting. And as the new technologies become more reliable and more capable, things like VR, AR, absolutely. And of course, what that does is increase demand on the systems multifold. So, yeah.
And what is working at an airport? How is that different to, say, working at a venue? You know, it sounds a bit obvious, and obviously you have to dig up trenches and things like that. But is it slightly easier in that you have to do that, so it's absolutely fine? I was just at a venue this week, and the Wi-Fi went down on the first morning, and you just think, how it's a massive venue in the UK, how is this still happening? Obviously, that's massively critical to this show. Is it easier to start from scratch, from nothing, to build up? Is that easy as a tricky word to use? Maybe that's not the right way.
Yeah, I give that horrible answer now and say yes and no. So, I mean, you do an event at somewhere like Excel, you've got 4 walls and a ceiling, you kind of know what you get there. You walk into Farnborough and something that was, a nice bit of turf last year is a mud swamp this year kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there are lots of surprises. There's lots of space to work with as well at times, which can make it good. The weather can work for you. It can really work against you.
Yeah.
This year we had a really good year. Last time we did it wasn't quite so pleasant. So it's a bit of a mixture, really.
So you just have to be prepared for whatever the show throws at you.
Yeah, and that's the events world, I think, isn't it? But there's just some different things that happen at Farnborough. I mean, it's stuff like you're having a team meeting or communicating whatever about the next stage of an install that you're doing. Next thing you know, there's a bunch of fighter jets screaming past you, and no one can hear themselves think, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, and no one's listening to you anymore. They're just watching the planes.
It's a very cool show, isn't it? Very good show to work on.
It's a great thing to be a part of, and when the Spitfires go past, then that's really that's quite something.
Yeah, amazing. I think that's all of the questions. Does anyone else have any questions at all? No, I think for me it's just the scale. We were talking a lot about, as I go into event organisers, they some of them have really big shows, well, relative to Farnborough, and some have really small, but they worry about implementing this technology. They see there's a lot of friction. But sometimes sometimes in their minds, obviously this is on a big scale, so you have to make it work, and you're really pushed. Is there anything that the organiser has wanted to do that you've just gone, I don't know about that?
No, because I think I speak for myself and how D2i develop things. The scalability on technology is not about numbers of people and the size of the event. It's the capacity of what the technology can do. So as long as you build it in mind of more functionality that can deliver more, then that's it. It's not daunting in that way. It's when we deliver technology, it's more about the time frames. One thing I think is unique about our industry when you're delivering technology is in a project, no one's going to move the show date. So you've got to hit that. Whereas in other industries, launch of the software for us, for example, dates can be pushed back, whereas it can't happen in this industry.
That show is opening.
It's opening whether you're ready or not.
Yeah. And those people are descending on the show as well.
Yeah, for us it's all about scalability because, whatever we can do, we can scale it back up. And I think the real difference for us for Farnborough is that mission criticality in that it cannot fail because we literally have all the safety, security, everything is sitting on our infrastructure. We have 3 internet lines running into Farnborough, one of which is at completely opposite end of the airport from the other 2. So, if someone sticks a digger through the cable, it's okay, we've still got another one. And then, all of the IT infrastructure is either duplicated or triplicated. Every cable we lay, we don't lay 1, we lay 2. And then really it's just scalable. Just keep multiplying up. We need more servers, add more servers, need more cables, need more APs. It doesn't matter. Just keep building it up, building it up, building it up. So it's when you take that approach, and it is really good having that strong relationship with Farm because when you understand what they really want to achieve, we can go and deliver it. It's when you don't understand it and then it feels like a change, that's when it becomes complicated. So, we've got that whole infrastructure now and we can build it up as big as it needs to be.
Away from Farnborough, we just briefly mentioned AR. Away from Farnborough, what do you see as the biggest trends coming through for the next year in events? What are organisers pushing or asking for, or what are you able to deliver? What have you seen at the show so far?
So for us, in terms of project and risk management, there seems to be more of an awareness that actually legislation is changing and events need to be sort of accountable of who's taken what action and where. All of that sort of force coming down is making people look again. Maybe a spreadsheet isn't the best way of doing this. And then what works really well for something like Farnborough especially is if you've got the same event replicating, then naturally you can start mining the data well. So we've started building in machine learning to start becoming predictive and identify trends of what's going wrong. So if, 6 years in the trot, catering suppliers are falling out 2 months earlier and you're getting a lot of red risks, then the system can start actually predicting that rather than just always being responsive and reactive to it.
And you, Matt?
Yeah, much the same as Peter. It's about that A&I, the analysis and intelligence. So for us at Farnborough, because we're doing sales, marketing, operations, finance, and the key to what we do there is centralising that intelligence. So it's then really asking the intelligent questions to then program the system the next time round to be more efficient or to kind of close the gap on operational processes that didn't go so smoothly. So it's always that kind of element of using the system and the analysis to reflect on the past to improve where you're going.
So away from Farnborough, as I'm sure you know, DB, we do our own AR and all that kind of stuff as well anyway. So yeah, what we're seeing more and more of is clients wanting something that little bit more different, that bit more exciting. The hardware's moving at a slower pace than it used to. The screens are becoming smaller pixel gap and all that kind of stuff. But effectively, it's what can you do with the tech and what can it do really clever. So yeah, using AR, data collection tools, all that kind of stuff and wrapping it up in a package. Which is why we know the load on the network at Farnborough is just going to grow year over year, because as soon as you start doing that, you're starting to push big data kind of arenas, and that's what's going to be more and more, I think, is going to be not just attracting people, not just sharing information, but gathering information on those clients, real-time analysis of that data and driving outcomes.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're almost out of time, so there's any other questions? Oh, someone's asked one more question. Can you explain further how to avoid attendees copying badges and accessing the show without paying?
It's a trade secret. No.
You can by going to visit. Come and visit our stand.
No, I'm happy to answer it. There's different ways, but our technology all comes down to real-time access to the data, which is a centralized database. It's a unique barcode that then we have the system then is configured in a way that once a barcode effectively is being used, or a number of entitlements that are associated with that barcode is being used at any point within any gate, it's effectively burnt and therefore can't be used. So that first one that's scanned, it's done. Anyone else that tries to use it, the scanner goes rejected. Go and see this person, please. And when they access the data, they can see that they've been scanned at this gate at this time by this scanner, and therefore we know it's fraudulent or copied or et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for wrapping up our session here today. If you want to know any more about their involvement, do go and visit them on their stand, and they can talk to you individually about how they play the part in Farnborough Airshow. Thank you very much for everyone who's taken part in the sessions today, and thank you for attending day 2 of Event Tech Live. Thank you very much.